Good morning. Good morning. Oh, let's just play a little mound, yeah? Let's just play a little while. Huh? Oh, I've been jogging along here. It's Saturday morning. It's the Motivator Show. The Motivator Show alongside, she'll be here soon, Empress Abner. I am feeling good this morning. I am feeling outstanding. Let's turn down the music now. Okay, let me turn it down. Let me turn it down. There we go. Let's turn it down. There you go. Oh, you know, this morning I went out, did the exercise. Oh my gosh, I tell you, I pushed my body. Lordy, lordy. Not too long ago, I was pouring with sweat. Oh, my body says yes. Yes, the motivator. Yes, I feel good. I'm going to treat you good. I'm going to boost my immune system. I'm going to sharpen my eyes, brighten my ears. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My body's taking care of me because I've taken care of my body. Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. Okay, let me get this set up, making sure we're transmitting well across the Galaxy FUE.net network. I hope all is well there. To Ian King, the management, and all are well. Let's be strong, and well. United and well. Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I hope those of you who are viewing us via YouTube and Facebook, and that's, of course, you can find us in YouTube or Facebook, of course, under The Motivator Show. That's DE space Motivator Show. There you go. And you can both hear and see my visage. You can see that person who's speaking to you now. I am feeling good this morning. I'm feeling brilliant this morning, in fact. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And of course, those of you who are wedded to the audio only can, of course, listen to the show also via Mixcloud. Okay? If there's any problem getting through FUE, go to Mixcloud and you can always hear us there. Multi-platform, multi-options, and I'm heartened by the level of support that has continued to grow these past few years that I've been doing these shows. Okay, I am heartened, and of course, I always say to you all, please, if you're viewing us via YouTube or Facebook, give us an affirmation. There we are. You can see it on the screen. Give us the thumbs up. That's an affirmation. The content met with your liking. Share the links of this show with your family, friends, neighbors, and others. Please share it. Subscribe. You receive advanced notifications of subjects of each show. Please, I welcome the support. The support has been overwhelming. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, all of you. Don't worry, we'll keep it going. Don't worry, we keep it going. Continue to expand. Continue to be successful. Remember, success is ours for the taking. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So this show will be truly exciting. For the very first time, reasons I cannot explain, we'll be doing a men's health show. Okay, and the specific subject matter, give us 40 minutes and I will reveal it to you. Okay, it will be revealed. It will be an important health show, particularly for men and women. It is also for you to share with your men's friends, husbands, and so on. Please share, because this will be important information that will be shared today. But before we get to that, let's continue. I want to go straight into the health messages, okay? I want to do that, okay? Because the health messages, which are now reframed as lifestyle messages, has had an impact, okay? Thank you for those testimonials. Thank you for those letters, for those emails. Thank you. Further evidence they are having an impact because people, members of the community, are suffering with their health. But the majority of our health conditions are self-inflicted. They are lifestyle. It's the way in which we are living our lives. It's the source of the problem. Okay? So we can do different. We can make a difference. We can enhance our lives through making and taking deliberate steps to change the impact of our environment, and indeed the food that we consume impact on our lives. In other words, we're in control. We have the power. You have the power to define. Yes, you have the power to define. Yeah, your outcomes. Yeah, your outcomes. You have that power in yourselves. Okay, and if anyone says otherwise, tell them galong. Yes, I'm a Jamaican, so I can say galong. Not taking any notice of you. We have the power to define the outcomes, our health outcomes. We have that power to define. So let's begin with the lifestyle message. Crucial lifestyle messages. Why are they so crucial? Because far too members of our community are overweight. Yeah, suffer from obesity. And of that number, 80% of that 80% are morbidly obese. In other words, let's take our women in particular. Yeah, 80% are overweight. Can you imagine? And of that 80%, they are morbidly overweight. In other words, dangerously overweight. Yeah, having a direct negative impact on their health. And I was so shared a almost lamentable a stat this week that was really depressing, even for me, to discover in a ward, which is a political area here in London, 52% of the children, yeah, are obese. Can you imagine? And in the borough that I reside in, which is Southwark here in London, the African population are nearly half the total population. But in schools, we're more than 85% of the total student population. So when you hear a ward where 52% of the children are overweight, that's a red flag, a serious red flag, an emergency, if you like. We must do better as a community. And it's for that reason these lifestyle messages are crucial. I know many of you are going to ignore them. Many of you are going to resist because you've formed habit. And I get it. But each week I'm slowly, we together are making the difference to your health outcomes, the way you treat yourselves. That's the purpose of these messages. Consistent messaging to you. So you absorb it, you understand the implications for you. And in understanding the implications for you, you are given the power to redefine you. Take control, change the habit. It's tough, I get it. But let me go straight into this. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar and salt you consume every day. Yeah, those very basic ingredients. Okay, sugar, of course, having this very similar chemical composition or hormones in our brains. Okay, and therefore we are likely to develop a sweet tooth. In other words, addiction, a habit for sugar. And if you don't add sugar, it tastes so different that too many said, oh, I'm not going to consume that. But actually, the sugar is masking the natural flavor, the natural taste. And we become habitually sugar addicts. In other words, you're sugar addicts. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar you're consuming. And as you know, one of the long-term implications of the excessive consumption of sugar is diabetes. And in our community, and when I say our communities, I really mean the African Caribbean, continental African communities and the heritage, and of course, Asian communities, particularly Indian subcontinents, Pakistan, and so on. Okay. We are particularly affected by diabetes, which is a lifetime disease and can be quite debilitating. And most certainly, it does not improve the quality of our lives. So I ask you to consider the amount of sugar that you consume every day. Do you need to add that additional spoons of sugar to your teas and coffees? Drink those tinned drinks, which are often just loaded with sugar, and they call it by different names. Sucrose, for example, is the typical, a typical example, okay? Or syrup, another example of another name for sugar. Okay, we consume far too much of it, and it's harming us, doing us direct harm. I must say, it took a number of years for me to stop buying sugar from the grocery stores. I have to say, it took nearly 10 years. So I get it, okay? It was a gradual reduction. I'm not saying stop overnight. If you can, great, but a gradual reduction is what is recommended by the experts. Salt is another one we add to our diet on a regular basis. Excessive consumption of salt, okay, is harmful to the human physiology, okay, and particularly harmful to those of us who add excessive amount every day. Often we're adding again as a flavor enhancer, okay, in theory, the food should taste better, but actually it's masking the natural flavor, the natural taste. We do not need to add additional salt to our diet, particularly if you live in the West, or you've got ready access to nutrition, to calories. We definitely do not need the additional sugar and salt. And salt, one of the principal conditions that you may contract is, of course, high blood pressure or hypertension. Okay, and I'm pretty confident those of you who are viewing and listening to this show will know someone with either diabetes or hypertension, high blood pressure, either in your immediate family or in your immediate friends network. That's how prevalent it is in our community. Look at the stats for our community, it's way above average. In other words, we are being weighed down by those two conditions alone. Okay. I also ask you, please, also to consider the amount of carbohydrates and fat that we consume every day. Let's take carbohydrates first, primarily derived from wheat-based products, okay? Wheat-based products which we eat in abundance in our communities, in abundance. What happens? We consume, we store it, we're storing the energy, and what does it have impact on our bodies? We've got too much calories in our bodies, too much sugars in our bodies, which is what is being converted into. And what happens to our bodies? We try to excrete it, but it damages our bodies in the long term. So please reduce the amount of carbohydrate that you are consuming on a daily basis. But equally, of course, the amount of fat, primarily derived from animal products, eating meat, usually just laden with fat, particularly certain meats. But I have to remind the audience that dairy products are just another form of cow's fat. Cheese is hardened cow's fat. Margarine, not so hardened, okay? Milk, and look, babies love milk, because they need all the energy, excessive energy that's in the milk, okay? In other words, the fat. But for grown adults, it is questionable. It's not for me to tell you to stop drinking milk. I ask you, please go and speak to a nutritionist, speak to your doctor. Let them provide you with the professional advice. I can provide you with the general advice, okay? But I've been trained, I've been briefed as an elected official on the health outcomes in our communities and the how that happens in our community, the consequences of our actions, food, and I'll get on to exercise later on. So I ask you to consider the amount of carbohydrates and fat that you consume every day. Okay, just consider the implications. Yeah, I know you often see members of our community with these big, bulky shoulders, bloated abdomens. Yeah, big thighs and bloated and big, if you like, buttocks. And some people would look sometimes interesting, but actually, the long-term health consequences are not attractive. I say again, the long-term consequences of being overweight are not attractive. We should not encourage that mentality in our community. Only a friend of mine yesterday said, looking and viewing a member of the royal family, I won't quote the name right now, and she said this other woman was very slim, or in fact, she said skinny. I looked at this woman and said, wow, she looks to be in shape. Yeah, I don't see any fat on her. All I can see is muscle. And this is a woman I'm looking at. Yeah, she was fit. Yeah, whereas my friend, a very attractive person, well, and very attractive, but gosh, that mentality is what we need to change. Yeah, the idea that a woman being heavier than a man is somehow natural in the mammal world. That normally is not the case. And where that is the case, I can assure you, and I'm not a professional, I can assure you, though, that that woman is setting herself up for long-term health conditions. But it's in your power, it's in your gift to seek out professional advice. Speak to your doctor, speak to your nutritionist or pharmacist, okay? It is absolutely critical that you seek out the professional health you deserve. You deserve. I also ask you, please, to consider the amount of starch that we consume on a daily basis. And starch, in our case, is primarily through, he's got to say, through rice. If you're from the Caribbean, it's rice and peas. From West Africa in particular, it's the jollof rice. I hear you. Don't worry, I hear you. We eat too much of it. We eat in excess. That's the problem. It's not the consumption of it that's the issue. It's the excessive consumption, which is the issue. I'm told by the expert we should be consuming no more than a fistful of rice in any one sitting. And if you're eating more than the fistful, then you know consciously, because you've been told now, that in the long term, you are actually doing harm to yourself. In the long term. In some cases, it's a much shorter period of time. We store the energy that's in the starch, okay? And it promotes overweightness, okay? Interferes with the chemical composition in your bodies, okay? And thereby promote the conditions which I've mentioned earlier. And in our community, there's excessive numbers of people with hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, with cancers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because eating far too many of those processed foods. Yeah, promoting cancers because they're full of chemicals that you can barely pronounce. Yeah, barely pronounce. And if you're eating regularly these processed foods, you are setting yourself up. And I don't mind saying to you, let the companies tell me otherwise, for failure, health failure. sooner than you would normally expect as you get older. So I ask you to consider all what I've said, okay, and respond positively. But I gain no financial gain. There is no financial gain. Okay, you're not going to provide me with additional pleasure, as it were. But what you will provide to me, if there is an interest, is seeing members of the community who are slim and healthy and smiling in abundance. That is the reward I seek. I hope that's a reasonable exchange. Because all the doctors tell us, the nutritionists tell us, those who are in the know tell us, we need to exercise far more. Yeah? We need to exercise, and I mean proper exercise. I don't mean walking, just walking. Go to the gym, or if you can afford it, engage a private trainer. Absolutely critical, so you can develop the regular habits of training, keeping your body in shape. Absolutely critical. Yeah, absolutely critical. The experts will tell us we need to eat far more fruits and vegetables, particularly green vegetables, but a broad range of vegetables. Okay, every day. Drink the appropriate amount of water. I have my water here. Looking for it. There we are. Have my water here. Between 2 to 3 liters is what the experts tell us. Okay, it might vary depending upon your height and your mass. But speak to your doctor, speak to your nutritionist. They will give you the correct amount for you, which is pertinent to yourself. Okay. In other words, far more fruits and vegetables, particularly green vegetables, drinking the appropriate amount of water, between 2 to 3 liters per day. Exercise a critical component in your overall wellness campaign. Absolutely critical. And I urge you, if in doubt, speak to a professional. Speak to your doctor, speak to your nutritionist or pharmacist. They will provide you with a professional, maybe personalized view on how you can promote your general health and well-being. Okay, I've seen the stats. I've been briefed, and it's pretty clear it is within our power to reduce the instances of diabetes, of hypertension, high blood pressure, of cancers, okay, of heart conditions, particularly if you're not exercising, huh? Heart conditions. If you're not raising your heart will weaken over time. Mm-hmm. We can, and I urge you, we must do better. Okay. And if in doubt, I say again, seek out professional advice. Okay. I hope these messages receive you well. And I know many of you will hear the messages and you're going to say to yourself, I can't do that. And I know that if that is the case, I urge you, really sincerely urge you, speak to your doctor, explain your situation. Let the doctor do the general health check, see your weight, your blood pressure, sugar levels, cholesterol levels, and so on. Yeah, just measure them, a general health check, and that gives you a good idea of what is necessary for you to promote your good health. Okay. Yes, I see the. Indeed, I haven't. Yeah, I'll get on to the messages that you are able to send to us via YouTube and Facebook. You can communicate with us here in the studio via the Messenger app, and I welcome your messages. I welcome your messages. If you're viewing us via YouTube and Facebook, there's a messages facility attached to it. Love to hear from you, and thank you for that last message, that caller. And my last statement here in relation to our health, okay? If we, the adults, are not taking care of our health, the situation that I've cited in one political ward in the borough that I live in, where the majority of the children are overweight, will become common across the communities, areas where our communities reside. So we absolutely need to do better, not only for our sake, but for our children's sake as well, because they will follow our lead. So I say to you, we must and we should do better. If you've got any doubt, seek out professional advice. Alrighty, I'll pause there, but I hope these messages receive you well and give you cause to think about your health and how you can protect your general health and well-being. Okay, and of course, just to finally conclude, you should also think about your mental and spiritual health. Okay, any doubt with regards to your mental health, please seek out immediately professional advice. Do not hesitate. And if you have family, friends, you feel requires that support, refer them to a specialist or to your GP. Yeah, I would urge you to do so. Spiritual health, of course, whoever is your spiritual advisor, but I recommend for all of you meditation, 20, 30 or so minutes per day. I can assure you will make a real difference to your general health and well-being. Meditate where you focus your mind, you push away all the distractions and you focus your mind on absolutely nothing. You clear your mind, in other words, okay? And you meditate. Your body, mind, and soul will benefit from meditation each day. Praise Jah, Rastafari. Yes, sir. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. Ashun. Bless Ashun. So let me now move on. This show is going to be a really interesting one because we will have the opportunity to speak to a specialist who understands men's health, andrology, if you like, okay? But men's health for a specific condition we want to focus on today. And it's the first time we've commissioned a show that looks at a condition that specifically affects men. I've done, for some reason, numerous shows in the past which focus on women, and if I may say so, quite rightly so. Okay, but today is the first time of 3 years it'll be a show devoted to men's health, but specifically prostate cancer. Prostate cancer, get that right, pronounce it correctly. Prostate cancer. It is the biggest killer, particularly black men, both in UK, Americas, and in the Caribbean. Okay, the biggest killer. It's akin to breast cancer in women. Okay, so we're going to have a specialist here to talk us through what it means for us as a community. But before doing that, what I want to do is really look at and really recall contributors to past shows, because we've had some truly mighty contributors, I must say, truly mighty contributors. So I want to recognize a number of them. Some of you will recall, and those who are regular viewers and listeners, remember in January, I think it's the 14th of January, we had David Simons, okay, a truly interesting person, an author, a playwright, an inspirationist, if you like, an orator. And the theme of that show was to unlock your genius. Now, if you haven't watched that show yet, it's still there on YouTube and on Facebook. I commend that show to you. It was truly inspirational. It's one of those shows where I received significant feedback, numbers of people that were inspired by David Simon. Okay, look him up. Okay, look him up. Truly an inspired person. And in February, we had another inspired woman. Okay, I believe on the 11th of February, we had Mayata Fambrula, the prospective Labour candidate for the Campbell and Peckham constituency, to represent the constituency in Parliament at the next general election. She will be the Harriet Harman's successor. I say she will be because it's a 99% likelihood that the Labour Party in Campbell and Peckham will be successful. I commend Mayata to you. She will be an outstanding MP. Absolutely. And the polls suggesting that the Labour Party finally, next year, is likely to gain power in Britain. And Mayata will certainly be an outstanding MP in power, finally, after far too many years. far too many years. Okay. The next month really focused on that wonderful country of Nigeria. Okay. So that it was dominated by Nigerian issues, and quite rightly so. And I think, I'm not stretching this, I think most Nigerians would agree that the election process undermined Nigeria's international reputation. Interesting to see how many Nigerians disagree with that statement. After all, if the Nigerian Supreme Court was forced to override one of the results declaration by the so-called Independent Election Commission, all right, they made a declaration which was subsequently overruled by the Supreme Court because they ignored the failing of the electoral process. It's little wonder that the reputation of the Nigerian political discourse and process has been undermined by the most recent presidential election. Okay. And as you know, I then went on to have a follow-up show on Nigeria on the 25th of February entitled Nigerian Presidential Election, The Commentators Speak Out, which was then followed up by another show on the 4th of March, which is entitled Bola Tinubu, forgive me, Nigerian President-elect, the voters have spoken. Each of those shows were hot. Each of those shows looked at the details, the granular details of the electoral process. Okay, and then each time, even though I'm an optimist by nature, it was quite clear that there was too many aspects of that electoral process which was flawed. We've just had the electoral process here in Britain yesterday. And there's no, if only a fraction of what happened in Nigeria happened here in Britain, there's no doubt that those seats would have to be rerun. Okay? I know that Peter Obi has taken the process and questioned the process, and it's taken this issue through the courts, and I do wish him well. But I fear that that it will not be enough. But I therefore lament what's happened in Nigeria. It's an important country to us all. It's a country that we must all appreciate. Okay, it is the largest democracy in Africa. It's a democracy that we must cherish. Okay, and we must also look forward to the next generation. Why do I say that? Well, there's a wonderful Nigerian whose name I always quote. Okay, I'm going to put her one of her sayings, which she made. This saying she was in 2020, I think it was, and she said this: "Given the state of Nigeria and Africa, I think people haven't yet made the mental link that they are responsible for the kind of existence they hand over to their children." And the great Nigerian who wrote that is Ndidi Ichiwa. She's my most frequent visitor here, and I'll get her back maybe this month or early next month, really to update us on the latest situation inside that great country of Nigeria. Note, I say great country of Nigeria, because Nigerians are great. They have greatness in them, and they have the ability, the determination to make Nigeria a place which is fair and equitable for all. You have the ability to do so. It is quite evident when you see Nigerians here in Britain, Europe, the Americas, or other places. They excel, absolutely excel. If they can excel outside Nigeria, they absolutely can excel inside Nigeria also. We must do better. And if we need all of us, even though we're not Nigerians, to support them, we should lend them our support. Because what happened in the presidential election, the evidence weaknesses in the process will go down in history. Because we've suffered some of the consequences here in Britain. Trust me when I say that. we've suffered some of the consequences. I won't go into detail right now. Okay, but we must and we should do better. I urge all Nigerians, all those who are married to Nigerians, yeah, to support Nigeria so that Nigeria can and will take its rightful place amongst the lines of great nations across the world. Okay, enormous wealth, enormous creativity, enormous potential exists in that great country of Nigeria. Praise be, bless Ashun, bless Ashun. Anyway, I look forward to speaking to Aditi about this. I'm really concerned about the future, but her words are very clear. And I'll read it once more, then I'll move on to the next theme of our show. Given the state of Nigeria and Africa, I think people haven't yet made the mental link that they are responsible for the kind of existence they hand over to their children. It's there on the screen. We're viewing this via YouTube or Facebook. It's there on the screen. You can see it. You can see her name. Look her up. Some tremendous writings. I need to go through. There's some wonderful articles written by her. Truly, insightful. Truly deep. They're the sort of articles that move nations. Let's hope they will move Nigeria. All righty, let me take this off the screen now. So what I want to do is now focus on the theme for today's show, which of course is prostate cancer. Okay, Black men are many times more vulnerable to prostate cancer. Let me just run this little video I've got here. This video here. Let me bring it up on the screen. Make it big. 1 second. Make it big. Make it big. Can I make it big? Oh, there we go. One more time. Oh, and now the next one. Oh, I don't want to do it. Okay. There we are. No. Okay. All right. Never mind. I can't get that right for some reason. It will keep doing something else. Not what I wanted to do. Up. There we go. Got it. There we go. Thank you. So prostate cancer. Why are we concerned about it? Let me just take you through each slide, then I'll go into the video. And hopefully at the end of that, we'll have from age 45, Black men are at high risk of developing prostate cancer. 1 in 4 Black men will get prostate cancer in their lifetime. Don't delay. Take action now. Okay? That is the theme of today's show. Don't delay. Take action now. Okay? That's the theme for today's show. And I cannot emphasize this with sufficient emphasis, I don't believe, because too many of us, and I'm included, I went through a period of 27 years of not going to a doctor, a GP. 27 years. I say it with no pride at all. It was an extremely stupid thing to do. Stupidity. Yeah? Stupidity. The idea that I'm invulnerable to illnesses or maladies. Yeah? We're all vulnerable to illnesses or maladies. We may not display them, but we're all vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just play this video. I want you, before I bring in my guest, I want you to appreciate the video. This video perfectly outlines my guest's talent and my guest's ability to discuss this subject with a depth that few people that I can think of are able to perform. Okay, just 1 second. If I can get the video working, it'd be nice, of course. It's always in Mac. Always when I want it to work first time, it doesn't, but it will work in a few moments because the video is important. It provides a useful introduction for my guest. And my guest is someone for whom we all should express real appreciation. He is an African man who's devoted his life to upholding and protecting life. And I'll give you his details in a second. Here we go.
Prostate cancer is the most common cancer in men in the UK. Every hour, one man dies from the condition.
There's probably about 30,000 new diagnoses per year. And in terms of mortality, probably 10 to 12,000 men a year die from prostate cancer. And it's analogous to breast cancer. In other words, the same numbers of women get breast cancer as men getting prostate cancer.
The risks of developing prostate cancer increase with age and if you have a family history of the condition. Those of African and African Caribbean origin are also at a greater risk.
001.
There are no specific symptoms in the early stages of prostate cancer. If urinary symptoms are present, the most likely cause is an enlargement of the prostate. However, prostate cancer needs to be excluded.
Because of the position of the prostate sitting underneath the bladder can affect the way a man passes his urine. And the kind of problems a man might notice is difficulty in getting started to pass his flow. The stream can be slow, he can be going often, he may have to get up at night a few times. He may find that it takes him a long time to actually expel the urine from his bladder. He may find that actually it's not emptying the bladder properly, so a few minutes later it's got to go back.
Urologists would advocate that men over the age of 50 need to have regular checkups regardless of whether they have symptoms or not.
This would be the rectum. And this would go in like this.
Diagnosis of prostate cancer is made by a PSA blood test, rectal examination, and a prostate biopsy.
PSA, which stands for prostate specific antigen. This is a chemical made by the prostate gland. And in prostate cancer, the level of this chemical tends to be higher than normal. And if the PSA is raised, even without any symptoms whatsoever, that's an indication for referral to a urologist.
55-year-old Rawl Price considers himself to be very lucky. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2003, despite showing no obvious symptoms.
I just suddenly didn't feel right. And I went to the doctor to generally find out what was wrong with me because I kept feeling tired unusually.
He didn't have any specific urinary symptoms at all. But he had his PSA checked with lots of other things he was having checked because he felt a bit under the weather. And it turned out that despite his relatively young age, he did have prostate cancer. And he's had that dealt with, and 5 years later, there's been no sign of recurrence.
I've been given the all clear now, but I still have to have follow-up clinical appointments on a yearly basis. Started off at 3 months and it went to 6 months. Now I could just go to my GP and they'll do the PSA tests, which is a yearly thing.
Once a diagnosis of prostate cancer is made, further tests are needed to decide upon the best course of treatment.
For example, we may get a CT scan or an MRI scan or X-rays of trying to determine if the cancer is spread beyond the prostate gland. At times we might do what's called a bone scan to determine if there's any prostate cancer spread to the bones. Either it's localized or it's metastasized. If it's localized, that's when we have a whole array of treatments that we can do with the aim of trying to eradicate the cancer altogether. Surgery is just one option.
One alternative to surgery, which is proving to be very effective in treating prostate cancer, is brachytherapy.
Brachytherapy is an advanced and sophisticated technique. It's a sophisticated way of dealing with a localized prostate cancer. Brachytherapy is a technique that I have particular expertise in. I've been trained both at centres in the UK and also in Seattle, where brachytherapy was first popularised. This works using radiation to destroy the cancer. And the way we deliver radiation to the prostate is we implant these tiny little pellets, about the size of a grain of rice, into the prostate gland, where they stay permanently, and they give off their radiation over a very short distance, and that destroys the cancer. And the great beauty of this is that it's done as a day case. It does require some sort of anesthesia, either a general anesthetic or what we call a spinal anesthetic, where the lower half of the body is put to sleep. And it's a treatment that the men tolerate very well. So I'm very keen on this way of dealing with prostate cancer.
Any side effects from this treatment tend to be urinary difficulties. These, however, don't last long and can be counteracted with tablets.
What we found is that when we've given men the option of a radical treatment for the prostate cancer, and we've told them about brachytherapy, the vast majority of men opts for that as a treatment. And to date, all the men at our centre that have had brachytherapy have done very well. And of course, any cancer has a risk of recurrence. I mean, it's a small risk in prostate cancer, but nonetheless, we follow these men up for many years, minimum of 10 years, before we can say, you're cured.
And there you are. There you are. Let me just get back here. Hopefully stop the streaming. There we go. Am I still there? Excellent. Yep. Okay. Let's get back in here. 1 second. There we go. Oh my gosh. Here we go. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Let me just get this started again. Get the button. There we go. And the last one. I seem that's my technical thing. Somebody my screen blank. I'm sure for good reason. I'm sure it wasn't professional call this. Anyway, let's just quickly resolve this 1 second. There we go. 1 moment. What I do, I am bringing. Oh, I'm bringing. Are you there, Emma?
I'm here. Good morning. Good morning.
Ah, I can hear the this now. 1 moment. Let's resolve the problem. 1 second. There we go. For some reason, it's duplicated. This video today, and we're back in. There you are. I'm back in now. I hope. Am I back in?
Your screen is black.
Yeah, it is black. I'm not sure why. That video did something to my screen for some reason. Okay, well, this is a good start, isn't it? Oh, all right. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in the professor in a second and just try and resolve this screen issue. I may have to. 1 second. There we go. Oh, it's come back now. Am I? Oh, I'm back. There you are.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Not sure what happened there. Okay, let's begin. Let's begin.
You're looking very smart this morning.
Oh, I'm looking smart.
Where are you going this morning?
Well, there is an event today at 11, which being a local councillor, I'm obliged to go along to. Not the actual event, but a local event in celebration of the coronation of the king. But I'll get back to that later on.
I'm getting into that with you. I won't even get into that, but yeah.
But bring in our guest before you take. I'll be taken off track. Come on now. There we go.
I haven't said anything.
There we go. Let's bring him in. There we go. Good morning, Professor.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
And forgive my technical problem. Not sure what happened there. Anyway, I'm gonna. I've got your name, Francis. Do I say Francis, Frank? I've seen in other places you're referred to by 4 or 5 different descriptors. Which descriptor would you wish us to apply this morning?
Francis is fine.
Frank. Thank you. But I see Francis. Your data there. I just must put it out to you.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Sorry,
I'll turn the volume up.
You got there. You said Francis or Frank?
Francis for this morning.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Professor Francis. And thank you for joining us and thank you for finding the time. I know you are a man in demand.
Oh my God, yes.
That's never a bad thing. Never a bad thing.
No, that's true. I'm blessed.
What I'm going to ask you to do, can I just ask you just for the audience, just the theme of today's show is listen to the professor on prostate cancer. That's the theme of today's show. As you know, our people are very stubborn. Very stubborn, okay? And they need to be convinced that whoever's given advice is someone of the right credentials. I'm being an elected councillor, I can affirm you have the right credentials, but I want you just to say a little bit about yourself. Who are you? How is it you are now a professor of urology, I understand?
Yes, so good morning all. As has been said, my name's Professor Francis Chinagunda, MBE, and as an aside, I was bemedaled by King Charles III many years back, but that's another story.
Another
I'm a consultant urologist,
yes.
so I'm a surgeon that deals with disorders of the urinary system. I work at Barts Health NHS Trust, which is in East London. I've been a consultant urologist now for over 26 years and trained for 12 years to get to that level. So I have a lot of experience in urology. I'm particularly interested in prostate cancer. Now, professionally and personally, I do have that interest because prostate cancer affects twice proportionally as many black men as it does white men or indeed Asian men.
Yes.
So black men are disproportionately affected by prostate cancer, which means that more proportionally more black men are dying from prostate cancer. So it's a field I've been working in for many years, both to raise awareness in the black community, because there's no national screening program. And also you may get prostate cancer without having any symptoms. So if you know about prostate cancer, then you can go along and get your PSA blood test, where prostate cancer can be picked up early, and the cure rate is extremely high. Now, one of the things that was interesting on the video clip that you showed before, I was interviewing a gentleman called Rawle Price. Now, if you notice, he was diagnosed in 2003. We're now 20 years down the line, and he's perfectly fine and well and functioning perfectly normally.
Yeah.
So that's an example of catching the disease early, as he did, getting treated, and 20 years later, he doesn't have any problem.
Can I, Professor? I'm going to acknowledge a story because we've written, but there are some young people who are viewing this particular show, and they're interested in the fact that you are a professor. A question posed to me by a young person is that, how did a black man become a professor? Okay, it must be really tough.
Yeah, the thing is, it's an academic title, it's an academic accolade, and essentially, it's because of something you apply for when you've done many years of research, published a lot of articles in learned journals,
yes,
done a lot of teaching, lecturing both in the UK and overseas. So when you attain a certain level of academic excellence, I guess, then you can be awarded that title. So it's basically having done a lot of research in various areas, but particularly prostate cancer. So I was, for example, I was the first one to show in the UK that black men are at twice the risk of developing prostate cancer. So I did that research some years ago now and published it, and subsequently published further papers looking at black men in more detail. So when you apply to your academic institution, the powers that be will look at your CV. They will look at how many papers you've published, how many presentations you've made at international conferences, how well you're recognized in your field, and then you can be ascribed that title. So there's an academic scale. So you go from lecturer to senior lecturer to reader and eventually professor. But it's true that there's not that many black professors in the UK. I think 1% of professors are black.
1%.
Yeah, 1%. That's across all disciplines, not just medicine. It's only 1%. So it's not enough. It's not enough, and I'm sure as time goes by, that percentage will increase.
Thank you for that. And what would be the advice, before we get into the main questions, you give to a young person who's starting out in medicine? What would be just a few words, your advice to them? Yes.
Well, it's a question of lifelong learning. So the advice is always to keep interested, keep abreast of developments in your field. And if you have the opportunity to do some research to advance knowledge in your field, then take up those opportunities.
Thank you. Hopefully those young Oh, I've just got a message from them. They're now happy. Apparently, you've got some interesting social media pages. I'm told you're on LinkedIn, of course. Are you on Instagram as well? Instagram?
I am on Instagram, although I've not posted anything there for a while. But I am on Instagram. Yes.
Well, there's a whole group of them are now watching you. Anyway, let me go into and that's you're now a celebrity. If you would, and if I may say so, I met you. I say met you, but you wouldn't have recognised me at the time. You attended a function in 2011, I think it was 2012, under Black Men. You gave a.
Oh yes, that's right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I was present. You were truly impressive, if I may say so.
Oh,
Truly.
thank you.
Now, let's go into the interview proper. And I wanted to, this would be an interesting one. So the purpose of this interview is to raise awareness and to encourage action by those who are listening, who either feel that they are impervious to illnesses, as I used to feel I was totally impervious to illnesses, or those who might be concerned and not sure what steps to take. Okay, so those will be the themes of our questions. So the first question to you is, what is a prostate cancer? What is it?
Yeah. So, so if we take one step back, what is cancer? So, a cancer is an abnormal growth of cells. So normally, cells, which are the building blocks of the body, grow in a coordinated manner, and those cells die and are replaced by new cells. When these cells grow uncontrollably, that's what we call a cancer. And those cancer cells can spread from where they originated, and if they spread around the body, they suppress the bodily functions, in brief, which causes a demise, of that particular individual. So it's an uncontrolled growth of cells. Now, the prostate is a small gland. It's about the size of a walnut. Mm-hmm. It sits underneath the bladder. So the bladder, as people will know, is at the bottom end of the belly. Yes. The prostate sits underneath that, and the prostate has a hole through the middle of it. That's where the urine passes through before the urine hits the penis and gets expelled. So the prostate sits underneath the bladder, and if the prostate, if something goes wrong with the prostate, it affects the flow of the urine. Now, the other thing about the prostate is men will often say, why do I have a prostate? What is the function of the prostate?
Yes.
So what the prostate does, it produces seminal fluid. So when the man climaxes and discharges, that seminal fluid, the vast majority of that seminal fluid is actually prostate fluid. Some of it, a tiny amount, is actually sperm from the testicles. Okay. So most of that fluid is prostate fluid. And that fluid, that prostate fluid, what it does is that it nourishes the sperm. So when the sperm are ejaculated, when the sperm are discharged into the vagina, and the sperm are swimming along trying to find the egg to fertilize the egg and cause pregnancy, the energy that the sperm has comes from that prostate fluid. So the prostate is both a sexual organ, it's a sexual gland, and it also has a role in regulating the flow of urine, because the water has to pass through it, you see. So if something goes wrong with the prostate, eventually it'll cause some urinary difficulties, which we can go into in some more detail. But the important point I want to raise from the outset, and I'll come back again and back to it, is that you can have prostate cancer without actually having any urinary symptoms. Right. By the time you're having urinary symptoms, the cancer may already be advanced. Right. So men think, and unfortunately some doctors think, I've got no urinary problems, therefore I can't have prostate cancer. That is so far from the truth. Mm-hmm. The time to find the prostate cancer is before it started to block the water pipe. Yes. Okay. Then the cure rate is incredibly high. It's like 98%,
Can I just say, this is an interesting point, which a friend of mine has now got prostate cancer. The term enlarged prostate.
Yes.
Can you explain that, please?
Yes. So essentially, there's three things that can go wrong with the prostate. Okay.
Mhm.
What young men get is inflammation of the prostate, so what we call prostatitis. And by young men, I'm talking about 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Doesn't include me then. Oh, well.
You surprised me. You surprised me. Well preserved, very well preserved. So young men can get inflammation of the prostate. Older men get enlargement or cancer, or the two can coincide. As you get older, as every man gets older, this prostate gland enlarges in size. It's just a natural thing. And if it enlarges in size and presses the water pipe, which runs through the middle of it, then that's what we call enlargement of the prostate. And the man finds it takes him longer to pass the urine. The flow starts slowing down. He may have to go more often. He may have to get up at night. So that's to do with the enlargement of the prostate. Now, some of these, but at times, it's not just the ordinary non-cancerous benign enlargements that we call benign prostate enlargement. At times, the problem is actually cancer within the prostate, and the symptoms are the same.
Okay.
So most men, in fact, every man, the prostate will enlarge. Half of those men, they will get urinary symptoms because the prostate is squeezing the water pipe.
Yes.
But also, some men can develop actual cancer in the prostate, but it's not as common as the enlargement.
I understand. So the enlargement is a natural part of growth.
Yes,
Right.
it is. Some men, the prostate will enlarge more than other men.
I understand. Okay, I understand you. And a quick subsidiary question to this one. I'm told by a number of my friends who've got an enlarged prostate that they normally feel quite warm between their legs. They're always feeling warm. They said is that related to the prostate as well? Always feeling.
Yes, I mean it can be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the prostate. If you were to put a finger behind your balls,
yes,
in front of your back passage, that's where the prostate would lie, kind of deep in. So at times, if you've got some prostate disorder, particularly if it's inflamed, you will feel discomfort in that area that we call the perineum.
Okay. Right. Okay. Understood. My next question is going to come from my co-presenter. If you could go to the next question, which is the conditions age-related. I think it's.
Is the condition age-related or your general fitness the key indicator for your vulnerability?
It's not a fitness issue. It's more an age issue.
It is primarily age, right?
Yes. Yeah. Not fitness.
Gotcha. No, you go to the next question.
Okay. The next question is, what treatments are generally available to treat an enlarged prostate? So what treatments could...
Yeah. So there are many treatments available to treat the enlarged prostate. The first thing to say is that the urologist or the GP will exclude prostate cancer by doing the blood test. Okay, so having excluded prostate cancer and arrived at the diagnosis of an enlarged prostate, the first step is tablets. There are various tablets that will shrink the prostate and therefore release the pressure on the water pipe so the man's flow can improve. If the tablets don't work, then there are several surgical options, ranging from what we call minimally invasive options, where you can heat the prostate, which makes it shrink, right through to surgery where you can core out the prostate, where you can pass an instrument down the water pipe, and you can core out the prostate gland to widen the water pipe, so-called transurethral resection of prostate.
Sounds painful. Is it?
Not particularly. I mean, you're asleep for the procedure, and it can take anything from 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
There's various technologies that one can use to do that coring out. You can just use an electrical current. You can use a laser. You can use heat to destroy the prostate gland, the bit of it that's enlarged.
Okay.
You can use high frequency water jet called aquablation. There's a lot of technologies that we can use to disobstruct the man whose prostate is choking the water pipe.
Thank you. Thank you for enough response.
Can I ask, is the technology better now than, say, for prostate cancer than it was about, say, 10, 15 years ago, would you say?
So we mustn't kind of mix prostate cancer with prostate enlargements. They're treated completely different ways. So if we're talking about the enlarged prostate and not prostate cancer, if we're talking about the enlarged prostate, yes, there are better technologies now with less side effects than there would have been 10 to 15 years ago.
My next question for you then, why is there a heightened a prostate cancer incidence in African and continental African men's compared to other ethnic groups? Why
Yeah,
are we more vulnerable? Or are we more vulnerable?
we are. The answer to that question is that we don't know the reason.
Oh,
So there's been a lot of research, and there's ongoing research, both in the UK and in the States, particularly in West Africa. There are big research groups involving the Americans, Nigerians, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Senegal. There's big research groups who have been trying to answer this question for at least the last 15 to 20 years. So taking big numbers of men, looking at their genetic profile, looking at their lifestyles, looking at what they eat, looking at what they drink. Despite all this research, we still can't answer that question. So what is it about being black that gives you that much increased risk of developing prostate cancer? Some years ago, I think back in 2009, some of us published a paper looking at the transatlantic slave trade route. And you may say, what's slavery got to do with prostate cancer in 2023? Well, the thing is, if you look at where those men were taken from in West Africa, whether it was Nigeria or Ghana or along the whole West African coast, and you look at where those men ended up in the UK, in the Caribbean, in America, in Brazil, where those black men were taken, the rates of prostate cancer are extremely high. So there's something about the West African diaspora that still resonates centuries later, that gives one that increased risk of getting prostate cancer. So I suspect that I don't know, I suspect that there must be some sort of genetic link, some ancestry genes that we can't identify, that gives you that increased risk of getting prostate cancer. Because I can tell you, it's extremely high in Nigeria, which I know a lot about, and it's very high in the Caribbean.
Yes.
It's a big problem, and it's the same in Brazil. It's the same in Black Americans. It's the same in the UK.
Yes.
So what is it about that West African heritage that gives you that increased risk? We're yet to work that out.
So are you saying, I just want to ask, because obviously my uncle's died from it, my dad has got it now. So is my son currently likely to get it as he gets older, even depending on his diet, the fact that the generation's a bit watered down? Do you think my son has a high chance of, because I've had several members of my family having it?
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that family history. And yes, your son is at increased risk compared to if he was comparing himself with a friend who's got no family history of prostate cancer. Yes, your son would be at increased risk. Okay. So for example, supposing your father has prostate cancer as a man, your risk is doubled compared to, say, one of your friends whose father doesn't have prostate cancer. you've got 2 family members, your risk is quadrupled. So so there is a familial element to it, which is why it is so important that we know our family histories. You know, we should consign to history, kind of keeping these things to ourselves and not telling people, because you're not doing your family a favor. And the other thing, if we're talking about family history, is that if on the mother's side there's a history of breast cancer or ovarian cancer, that increases your risk as a male of developing prostate cancer.
Oh.
So it's not only just important to know about the male members in your family, you know, your brothers, your cousins, your uncles. It's also important to know what the family history is on the maternal side. But these cancers are related to hormones, you know. So in men, it's the testosterone that fuels prostate cancer. In women, it's estrogen. So they're both hormonally related. So there is a link between prostate cancer and, on the female side, breast cancer and ovarian cancer.
Okay. Thank you. That's very important to understand. Can you tell us, where are the main research centres into this into prostate cancer? Where is that currently? Are they the UK, Nigeria, US? Where are the main?
Yeah, so I think probably the main centres in the UK, it's the Imperial Institute of Cancer Research, which is in Sutton, which is associated with the Royal Marsden. There's a renowned female professor, Professor Eales, who has quite a big team. One of her research members is Dr. Eva McCrowder. They're doing a lot of research into, and particularly in black men and prostate cancer. You know, looking at family histories, getting blood samples from these men, looking at various genetic markers. In the States, there are various centers in the States. In Boston, there's a big center in Harvard. There's a big research consortia, which is Harvard, and also various centers in Nigeria. There's also a big center at the Mayo Clinic, again with links in Nigeria and Ghana and Dakar and Cameroon. So there are centers both here, States, and in West Africa, all trying to work out why is it that prostate cancer is so common in black men and what can be done about it.
Thank you. That's very helpful. It's good to know that the research is being committed to and funded both by the National Health Service, US, and in Nigeria in particular. So I'm really pleased that is happening. I did some research, and it wasn't completely clear where all the centres of excellence will be found. But thank you. You've elucidated it very well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see that I've not officially opened the phones. Are you happy to take a few phone calls?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. But we've got some messages here on the messenger. What natural foods can we take to prevent prostate cancer? Is there such a thing? Natural foods, so on.
Well, I mean, that's a good question. When we're not aware of any foods that can prevent prostate cancer. Having said that, for men who do have prostate cancer, we recommend certain dietary measures. But what we don't know is whether those dietary measures, when you've got it, are things that can prevent it. So one of the things that we talk about is reducing your dairy product intake, reducing your red meat, increasing your vegetables, particularly green vegetables, fruits, tomatoes, broccoli, pomegranate, things like that. The Mediterranean diet. Now, diet is important. In fact, diet is very important. And although we don't have the data to be definitive, it seems to me that reducing your fast food intake can only be a good thing. Now, one of the interesting facts is that if you take a country like Japan, okay, now Japan traditionally has had a very low rate of prostate cancer, compared to black people. And it turns out that when the Japanese men migrate to America, their sons, in other words, the second generation, their rate of prostate cancer goes right up. It doesn't stay low anymore as had they been in Japan. It goes right up. Now we know your genome is not going to change in one generation. So what must be, to my mind, driving that increased risk of prostate cancer, and must be something to do with the diet.
Yeah.
And I suspect that all these fast foods, highly processed foods, are not doing men any favors.
Well said.
So that's what I think.
Yes, but the research into this is currently underway.
It's ongoing.
Yeah, ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
Okay.
It's very difficult to do research, into, because people can't remember, or they don't tell the truth as to what they're eating, and so on. But that research is ongoing. So, for example, some of the African studies that are ongoing, there's large groups of men who have been given a very detailed food diary, and the idea is to try and see if those men that get prostate cancer, whether they've got a different diet in terms of what they're eating to those men who don't get prostate cancer. So it's ongoing. But my intuition, my hunch is that diet is important.
So you are recommending, as I recommend every week, you may have observed, that we encourage our community to eat far more fruits and vegetables, to exercise and drink appropriate amounts of water, and of course, go to the doctor regularly, at least in our case, once a year, if you haven't been for a while.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with all those things. And in addition, I think vitamin D is very important.
Tell us more about vitamin D. I've read about this.
Vitamin D is an important vitamin that's beneficial for the immune system, and we think it reduces your risk of certain ailments, not just bone problems, but I think that vitamin D has a protective effect in terms of prostate cancer. Now, it's still being researched, it's still being looked into, but from what I've read over many years and the research that I've seen, I think there is something in that. And one of the things in the UK is that we don't get enough vitamin D, because it's, apart from what you take in your diet, it's sunlight. Sunlight on the skin makes vitamin D, and that vitamin D is protective against a whole range of conditions. And because of the melanin in our skin, we need a lot more sunlight and a lot more exposure to produce the same vitamin D levels as if we had lighter skin. But indeed, I mean, the government said, especially during COVID, that all of us should be taking vitamin D.
Okay.
A lot of the population are deficient in terms of vitamin D. So I think if our vitamin D levels are low, then we should be taking vitamin D supplementation. All of us should be.
That's very. Again, the theme of this show is to listen to the professor. So the professor's spoken. Okay, thank you for that recommendation. What I've got to do, I'm going to open the phone lines now, and those of you who are viewing us on Facebook or YouTube, you'll see at the bottom of my screen the number to call is 0208 133 5616. I repeat, 0208 133 5616. It's a little early in the morning, and I know that us men are a little shy on these subjects, as you well know, Professor. I've seen you in other places, so it might be a little slow. What tends to happen is the very last moment they'll pile in, as you know. Yep, they'll pile in. So I'm going to ask a few other subsidiary questions, if you don't mind, whilst they think about what they've heard. And judging by the number of texts, I've got a text here for question. Yes, the question here is, are you able to identify specific foods that we definitely should not eat that might be promoters of prostate cancers?
Well,
Okay.
well,
Mhm.
yes, I guess I can. I just have to be slightly careful that the data, the published data in the scientific literature is not robust enough to be definitive. But from my research and reading and so on over many years, I think it's similar to the kind of breast cancer story, which is we should be avoiding as far as we're able dairy products.
Okay. Yep.
Secondly, our red meat intake should reduce. So more fish, more chicken, more white meat.
Okay. Understood.
Now, so that's my opinion, which I think is fairly well informed. However, if someone said to me, show me the proof, show me the definitive data, show me the
So could you
large
just-
cohort studies, then I would struggle to do that.
Put a caller on the line. I'll take the callers as soon as they come in. Can I take the caller with the number ending 7773? Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Motivator. Again, a fantastic show. Thank you for bringing up this subject. Very important.
Hello, can you just speak up a little bit? Just make sure we get your volume right. Keep speaking.
Good morning. Can you hear me
that's
there?
better.
Good morning.
Do you have a question for my guest?
Yes, thank you for introducing this subject, Mr. Motivator, and for the professor coming on and really enlightening us with and putting into a highlight on the importance of this subject for us black men. I'm curious, when you're speaking about dietary,
I can't hear anything.
can you hear me?
Can't hear you. Oh, you are rather faint for some reason. I'm just trying to adjust your volume now. 1 second. Let me try it again. Keep talking. Keep talking. Go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well,
That's better.
Yes,
Yep,
that's clear?
okay. Yep, go ahead.
fantastic. Again, thank you, Professor, for coming on this morning and really enlightening us about the facts around prostate, especially for us black men. We really need to have this information, which is crucial. My question is, when we look at, you spoke about diet. So when we look at what we're consuming, especially around meat, and taking the effect that a lot of the meat products now, the chickens, the cows, whatever, are all fed chemicals and sort of growing enhancement chemicals in their feed. I'm wondering, once we digest that in our bodies, is that still having an effect on how our cells have been affected?
Yes, that's a very good question. I suspect the answer to that is yes. I can't prove that at present, but I think all the hormones, all the stuff that gets injected, I think, to me, that must have some detrimental effects.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some data to suggest that vegetarians have a lower risk of prostate cancer. I saw a study many years ago now, which was looking at Seventh-day Adventists who were vegetarians, and the data would suggest that they had a lower rate of developing prostate cancer. It was one study, it was a small study, so whether you can generalize that to the whole population, I'm not so sure, but I think it is a pointer.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's an interesting response. Caller, do you have another question whilst we've got you on the line?
Yes, and I also, you mentioned that testosterone has effect on the fluid. So I'm just wondering what kind of influence and effect that has on the prostate sort of enlarging or going off balance.
Yes. So the testosterone is required for the prostate to grow. Now, it turns out that if you remove someone's testosterone, in other words, if you remove their testicles before they hit puberty, the prostate gland does not enlarge, and those men do not develop prostate cancer. And we know this from when they used to castrate boys in Italy, the castrati,
Yes.
who then were able to sing very, very high, for all their lives, and would become major singing stars. Those castrated boys did not develop prostate enlargement, and they did not get prostate cancer. This is, we're talking about the 1700s. However, of course, if you do that, you remove all sexual urges, you remove the ability to have sex, you remove the ability to procreate. So that isn't something that one can do. But it does show that testosterone is important in terms of prostate growth. Now, we know that if you have prostate cancer and you reduce the testosterone levels, nowadays we don't physically remove the man's testicles. There are drugs, injections that can achieve that same effect in terms of reducing testosterone. We know that if you reduce the testosterone in a man who's got prostate cancer, the prostate cancer shrinks. It goes into remission. So, and in fact, we do use that as a treatment for prostate cancer. If we diagnose prostate cancer when it's already spread, it can't be cured, we can at least gain control of it for a period of time by reducing that man's testosterone levels. So testosterone is important. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is, the question that arisen is, is it because black men have a higher testosterone levels that they're more likely to get prostate cancer? There's no evidence to suggest that is the case. So testosterone, although it does fuel prostate cancer, it's not the cause of it. It's not the reason why black men have higher prostate cancer.
Okay. That's again a really good question, and thank you, Corder, for that. If that's is that the end of your questions? These were very good questions, I might add.
If I may, just one other.
You may. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
If someone affected by prostate cancer or enlargement of prostate and receives treatment, goes through treatment, what effects would that have on their performance or their ability to, or will they experience erectile dysfunction after that, or is that part of on the process?
Yeah, so we need to kind of separate out the enlarged prostate from prostate cancer. Okay, so I guess this is more about prostate cancer. So if we're talking about prostate cancer, the main treatments for prostate cancer, when the cancer is within the prostate and it's not spread outside the prostate, there are kind of three main treatments. One is surgery, so-called robotically assisted radical prostatectomy, where the prostate gland is removed in its entirety, done through kind of keyhole surgery, using some robotics to help the surgeon. There's radiation therapy, where you fire radiation from outside down through the abdomen and into the prostate to destroy the prostate cancer. And then there's the third main treatment is called brachytherapy, whereby you implant these radioactive seeds, these little pellets, into the prostate that give off the radiation, and that destroys the prostate cancer. Now, it is true that one of the side effects of these treatments, whether it's surgery or external radiation or brachytherapy, there is a risk of erectile dysfunction or impotence. It's not that every man that has these treatments will get those problems, but it is a risk. It is a risk. If that risk is realized and the man does develop erection difficulties after treatments, there are ways around that. There are ways, whether it's tablets like Viagra, for example, many of you would have heard about,
Yes.
or other ways. There are other ways and means of being able to get an erection if the natural ability has been affected by the prostate cancer treatments.
Right.
So it is a risk.
Yes. Okay. Is there? I read in a paper, Professor, that it's approximately 1 in 5 that it's likely to occur. Is that a fair assessment?
It's 1 in 5. It might be a bit higher than that, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's a complex topic because it depends on what your starting point is. You know, whether you've got good erections to start off with or not. If you have surgery, it depends on how the surgery is done and whether the nerves that control erections are spared, are left behind, or whether those nerves which run along the prostate are taken out. And with and again with radiation. But I think it is fair to say, as in general, the risk of erection difficulties is greater with surgery than it is with the external radiation or with brachytherapy.
Okay.
Now, because of that potential downside, and indeed there are other potential risks and complications of these treatments, there's been a move to develop what we call focal therapy. Focal.
Say again.
Focal, F-O-C-A-L, focal therapy.
Right.
So these treatments that I've spoken about, the radical surgery, the external radiation, or the brachytherapy, treat the entire prostate gland. Now, in the last few years, the concept of what we call focal therapy has come into play. Now, in a similar way, back in the day with breast cancer, once you had breast cancer, automatically you would remove the whole breast, mastectomy. And then people realized that actually you can just remove the lump and leave the rest of the breast alone, so-called lumpectomy. The same thinking has now come into the field of treating prostate cancer. And so it is now possible to treat, if you know exactly where the cancer is within the prostate gland, it's possible just to address your treatment at that localized area and spare the rest of the prostate.
Right.
And if you do that, then you reduce the side effects of treatment. And you can do that by using very high intensity heat targeted at a precise area within the prostate. Or you can use very, very cold treatments, very cold probes inserted into the prostate where the cancer is, and just destroy that small area of the prostate and leave the rest of the prostate gland alone. And that does reduce the side effects. So some men, it depends on your cancer and where it is and so on, but some men are suitable to treat just parts of the prostate and not necessarily treat the whole gland.
Okay.
So it's a relatively new concept.
Thank you, Professor. That was very helpful and very detailed response. Thank you. Caller, I want to say thank you very much for listening and your questions. Okay, those were very good questions, if I may say so. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Again, keep up good work, both of you. Excellent.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. If I may, Professor, just take a question that is on the messenger here. You mentioned, can the Professor talk a bit about the side effects of surgery to remove the prostate?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
so. So-called radical prostatectomy. It's a big operation. It's a complex operation. The potential side effects of the surgery is urinary problems. So urinary incontinence. In other words, leaking urine, because the prostate gland, by its very position, has a role in terms of regulating the urine. And there's a muscle next to the prostate that's called a sphincter. And it's this sphincter that is what keeps one dry. And if you damage the sphincter, which may happen during surgery because the prostate and the sphincter are right next to each other, if the sphincter gets damaged, which is quite common, then what happens is that you leak urine. You leak urine. And that's quite common after surgery. It's not a permanent problem, but until the muscles kind of get strengthened with exercises. It's quite common after surgery for the man to have to wear pads, for example, because the urine is leaking. But usually with time and with pelvic floor exercises, that leakage reduces. So not many men end up with the leakage being a permanent problem. So that's one of the potential downsides of surgery.
Thank you, Professor. And that you just used a term that's on my text, some pelvic floor exercises. Well, the questioner here is asking the question: what are the beneficial medical effects of pelvic exercises for men? We know about it for women, but
yes,
typically spoken about in respect of men.
So particularly after surgery, if you can strengthen your pelvic floor, and you would a man going through surgery would be taught how to do this, even before surgery, by the physiotherapist or the nurse specialist. If you strengthen your pelvic floor muscles, then that aids recovery of the control of your urine,
right.
and may also help with sexual function as well.
Okay. So is that generally recommended for men anyway? The right exercises that support your pelvic floor. Is that a general exercise you recommend men should undertake?
Well, I mean, there's no harm in it, and we know that the better your pelvic floor, the better your erections, and the better you can maintain your erections. So it seems a sensible thing to do. It's different in women if women don't do their pelvic floor exercises, particularly if they've had children, then they do develop leakage problems when they get into their 40s, 50s, and so on. So it's more important in women generally to do the pelvic floor exercises.
And we're coming to a close. I wonder, Professor, if you could now, just for the benefit of particularly men who are listening, we're all mildly concerned now. Now we've heard you, and I need to pay attention myself. So, I pay attention. But what would you recommend that the men who are listening in particular, or indeed the partners of men in particular, should pay attention in the future to ensure that they are able to spot potentially if they have either enlarged prostate or indeed prostate cancer? What are the steps to detect early detection and early treatment? What tasks would you recommend?
Early detection and early treatment is key. So I think the most important thing I would say is getting the blood test. There's a simple blood test called PSA, Papa Sierra Alpha, which stands for prostate specific antigen. This is a simple blood test available from the GP. And the message is every black man over the age of 45, irrespective of whether you've got any urinary problems, irrespective of whether you've got any sexual problems, every man over the age of 45 should go along and ask the GP to do a PSA blood test.
Okay.
And if the GP says, well, do you have any urinary symptoms? And you say no, and the GP says, well, I'm not going to do the PSA, you have to stand your ground and insist. It is your right, actually, to have a PSA. And what the Department of Health have said is that for if you're white, it's age 50. If you're a white man, then you are entitled to a PSA from the age of 50. The reason it's 45 for black men is that black men, on average, are 5 years younger than white men when they develop the prostate cancer.
Okay.
So it is your right, as part of your self-care, once a year, to get the PSA blood test. Now, I say to men, if there's a history of prostate cancer in your family or breast cancer in your family, then you should probably start getting your PSA from the age of 40.
Oh, okay.
So you get a baseline. So if the PSA goes up as you get older, then that may need looking into.
Right.
And in terms of looking into, I am referred many men every week whose PSA is raised. It should be below three units. And if it's above 3, then the GP refers the man to a urology specialist, such as myself. I would organize an MRI scan for that man. And if the MRI shows suspicious looking areas within the prostate, the next step would be to do a biopsy, which is where we put a needle into the prostate to take samples.
Right.
And if that comes back as showing prostate cancer, then and it's caught early, then the treatments are very effective indeed. Okay. As you saw from the video of Mr. Price, who 20 years later, he's fine. The cure rate from prostate cancer is extremely high if you catch it early. But if you're waiting for symptoms before you go to your doctor, you may have missed the boat.
Too late. Right.
You may have missed the boat, and although it can be controlled, it can't be gotten rid of if it's already advanced. So PSA blood test, the same way as we should all be getting our blood pressure checked. Once a year. We should all be getting our diabetes check once a year. So the message is, get your PSA blood test, irrespective of whether you think you have a problem or not. And for me, as a specialist in this area, it always makes me very sad where I see a man who has presented late.
Mm-hmm.
They've had no symptoms, and then something happens, they get the PSA, and it's 20 or 30 or 100 or 500 or 1,000, when the normal level should be 3.
Oh.
And fully well that if that man had a PSA previously, that cancer would have been picked up when it was in a state that one could eradicate it. Mm. So late presentation is, and that's the main reason. The main reason, it's not the only reason, but the main reason why men die from prostate cancer is because when it's diagnosed, it's already too late to cure it.
Okay.
And therefore one is in a situation of trying to manage it, trying to control it, which works for a period of time, maybe for some years even, but ultimately, the man will succumb to that prostate cancer.
Thank you, Professor. This has been very clear. We've got to be proactive. I will now add that recommendation onto my lifestyle messages I give out every week. It sounds to be eminently sensible advice, eminently sensible. Are there any closing words you want to share with the audience? Because I know you both. You are, of course, an NHS consultant, and you also have private practice. You might want to tell us a little bit about your private practice, why you do that in addition to NHS. Just give us some idea how they can contact you if they wanted to.
Yes. So as with many consultants, yes, I'm full time on the NHS. Mm-hmm. I do my 40 hours and plus. In fact, it's always plus.
Only 40 hours, huh?
But that's another story. And in my spare time, I guess I would have to call it my non-NHS time. Yeah. Then yes, I do private practice and have done for many years. Mm-hmm. So I work out of the London Bridge Hospital, work out of the London Independent Hospital. I do a clinic at the Spire London East, which is in Ilford, and I also do a clinic one evening a week at the Holly Private Hospital, which is out in Buckhurst Hill in Essex. Many of the people I see have been directed to me by the insurance company like Bupa or AXA, but many find me. I have a website which is urologyconsultant.co.uk. I have a secretary, private secretary, whose email is mfl, so Mother Foxtrot Lima .private, and then the digit 1 at gmail.com.
Brilliant.
So I'm happy to see people. Unfortunately, the NHS is so busy that at times we're not able to give as much time to discuss the ins and outs of things as we would wish, because there's a lot of pressure on us to see people. And one of the things that I like about the private sector is because it's my time. I can spend as long as I wish talking to someone. Right. I'm not constrained by the same time constraints as seeing people on the NHS. So I see a lot of men who have been treated perfectly well and perfectly adequately on the NHS, but they have more questions and they need more time to get their head around the treatment options that they are being presented with. And in the private sector, I am able to give men and their families that time.
Thank you. Thank you. You've been an extremely informative guest, I've got to say. And judging by the texts I'm receiving, it is interesting. They are, I hadn't realized, and I know I don't mind admitting it, that I may have only had this test only once, and I'm over 45. Thank you. Empress is laughing at me for some reason.
No, I'm not, because you look younger than 45, but you know.
And I realise you're right. We should ask for it if it's not been readily offered to it. It does seem a curiosity that one should have to ask for it if it's as common in men as breast cancer is in women.
Yeah,
and that's bewildering.
I think it's a travesty. I really think it's a travesty that we do not have a national screening program for prostate cancer. You know, the same way that we have for breast cancer. More men get prostate cancer than women get breast cancer. More men die from prostate cancer than women die from breast cancer. And yet we do not have screening for prostate cancer. And I've been petitioning, the powers that be, along with others, for many, many years now. And we're still on the case to say we should be offering every man a PSA blood test, not relying on the man to be aware of the risk of prostate cancer and not relying on the man to have to go and request it. So I think it's a travesty.
Thank you, Professor. We may, if you don't mind, invite you back again to talk about the campaign and other things, I think.
Sure.
Clearly, there must be a disparity in funding as well for prostate cancer.
Sure.
But that's another issue. Another time. But you have been an outstanding guest.
Thank you very much.
You've provided rich information, and I know that many men will take note of your wise words. The theme of this show is listen to the professor. His sole aim is to support you through these illnesses, and this is an important one for us to focus on. And prostate cancer, I became aware, because of my other duties, how high it is amongst men. I just didn't understand the figures. I thought it was a mistake. When I read it, I assumed it was a mistake, only to be told that no, these figures are correct. And it's us men who fail to support the campaign you're promoting. That is that it should receive at least comparable funding to the breast cancer campaigns, at the very least. Professor, you've been an outstanding guest. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
We'll get you back again, because there's obviously other questions we need to put to you. But thank you for your rich information. And I know you may well have saved a few lives this morning.
Thank you very much for kind words. It's a pleasure to be on the air. And thank you for having such a program and helping inform our community. So, well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye then.
Have a good bank holiday weekend.
Thank you, and you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, my Empress, that was something, wasn't it? Huh?
No, it's. I think it scared me more, because knowing that my son is 4 times likely to get it is quite scary to know. Yes. And obviously, I didn't even know it was that bad as breast cancer. So that's been very informative. It's made me want to change my son's diet, because he loves meat and he loves dairy products. So that will be something we'll be changing in the house, because I know his dad's changed his diet due to his health reasons. So it looks like I have to make changes in my house now.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, that you've heard the professor, listen to the professor, and I know it's difficult to change habits. Yeah. He cited meats, and he's recommended to white meats or no meat at all, if you can help it, but most certainly that. And he's also cited, of course, the eating more vegetables, of course, far more vegetables, exercise, and all the, in other words, all the typical.
It's really interesting that most black people that I know are lactose intolerant, so they can't eat milk, they can't drink milk, they can't eat cheese, they can't eat certain things, and maybe these are the reasons why, because it's just not good for our body.
Indeed. So these are real lessons for us, and I'm really pleased. We had the professor here, and we definitely need to get him back in. There are other questions I want to put to him, both from the broader campaign and resourcing, and how we can all participate in that campaign, because clearly it's in our collective interest.
Maybe you could start an event in the area about prostate cancer.
Maybe so.
I'm an ideas person. Remember, I'm the ideas person.
Don't you worry. Remember, this is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action, and where success is ours for the taking.
Oh, I know this already.
Absolutely.
I wanted to say something to you guys. So I held an Eid event last week at my school. It was very successful. We had over 200 people, I think, and some of them didn't have a ticket, and we raised nearly £300 to go to charity. So
well done.
Happy about that. So the parents would like it again. So hopefully we will have something again like that. So yeah, that's the achievement for this week.
Good for you. And I'm not allowed to not, in this particular episode of the show, I'm not allowed to ignore the event for today. Okay. So I want to simply I've got to admit not being a royalist, to be honest with you, but I'm going to show respect, and so I'm going to acknowledge that the monarch will be crowned formally today. Okay, he is monarch by affirmation, but he will be formally crowned as monarch, King Charles III. So I'm going to acknowledge that, and I will participate in a number of street parties which have been organised locally, because those who I represent participate, and therefore I will do so. Okay, but I just want to recognise the ascension of King Charles III. Okay, there are a lot of historical factors, issues I would like to discuss with the monarch, and I think the professor alluded to this earlier on. Maybe another time when we get him on, we might talk about that wider issue. But I do believe that it's important for us, as we are all taxpayers, and we will be paying for the royal family, that we should recognise this is for Britain an historic occasion. Okay, I think that's as much as I can say. Do you want to say anything, my Empress?
You just burn me by saying that we're paying for this coronation. That's all I've got to say. Burn to say that I've got to pay for this, whatever it is. So that's all I've got to say on it.
Yeah, we will remain respectful. I think that's really what's important, that we are respectful. We don't need to revert to other methods.
You know who I am, so I'm not going to go there. When there's stuff going on in Sudan and places like that.
Yes,
I've just got to say that. That's my stance on everything. So,
and that's also recognised. And I also just would say to listeners and viewers that next week we will have part 2 of the heirs of slavery.
I was going to say that guest was coming on. I was getting really excited. I was like, oh my God.
No. But I believe we will have the guest next week. It will be an important seminal session. It will be the first time we've had a member of the British aristocracy here in the studio. Okay, and I look forward to that interaction. Being a member of the Global African Congress, a reparations organisation, it will be an occasion to speak to a leading member of a leading family who were involved in the transatlantic slave trade and were financially compensated. Now, to the tune, using today's money, of more than £3 million, but £3 million 200 years ago could virtually buy you many, many mansions. Okay, so the spending power was very significant. Okay, so it will be an interesting occasion. It will provide an opportunity for us to better understand many of these families, and there are a few hundred of them, and a few hundred were paid a significant amount of money compared to what we have today. In short, in its day, they were paid must be under £1 billion. 200 years ago, £1 billion 200 years ago translates to close to trillions of pounds in today's money, which accounts for, of course, the City of London and the wealth that was the engine behind the Industrial Revolution here in Britain. And of course, the Palace of Westminster and Houses of Parliament are, of course, built on, I'm going to say it, blood money. Blood money. Okay, so it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see, and we will be respectful. But it's important for us to have this dialogue, respectful dialogue, from which we get a great deal out of that dialogue, and of course we do this because, of course, we want to ensure, as Ndidi Ishewa would have argued, and if she were here, she talked about the future of Africa. And let me just bring up the caption. You may have missed it, and we've only got a few minutes now.
Yeah, but you can talk about respect, but we have to be honest as well.
I'm just bringing it up on the screen now. So this is what she said. Given the state of Nigeria and Africa, I think people haven't yet made the mental link that they are responsible for the kind of existence
100%.
they hand over to their children. Yeah, a profound statement. Profound statement. In other words, we have the power to define, and we've got to work together as a community, particularly on those issues of absolute importance to us. Okay, we've talked about prostate cancer and its prevalence in our community. We should also talk about and discuss reparations and the restoration of those countries across the motherland to their former greatness. Okay, it's almost time out. Do you have anything else you want to say, my Empress?
I just want to say good luck to the year sixes, the year twos, and those who are doing their GCSEs in May, this week and the week after. I just want to wish you all the best. Good luck with everything you do, and good luck to the parents that are helping them study as well for the next couple of weeks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, all of these who've taken the end of year, you're taking your SATs tests. Look, you have our positive encouragement. We want to encourage you to do your best. And I'd love to hear from some of you how the outcome of your test. Love to hear from you. Love to hear any child who wants to talk about the experience. Yep, love to hear from you. This is a family-centered, child-centered show. It's intended to support you and the next generation.
100%.
Thank you. Thank you.
I might some of my son's friends to come on then. I might talk to them.
Look, I don't mind. I absolutely do not mind. Children are our futures. We must be tolerant of them. We must allow them to participate in those places where we occupy. Okay, and our intention for their participation is that they should feel a sense of belongingness. Okay, they can express their views, and their views are being heard. All right, and I can't take that caller as it's nearly 10 o'clock. I'm really sorry about that caller. That caller's waited far too long. So I'm going to say to everyone, thank you. Until the next strong, I remain the motivator, where we translate our words into actions and where success is ours for the taking. Blessings, my Empress, my blessings to you.
Peace out, A-Town down. Right.
Bye.
Holiday, everyone.
Going. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Here we go. Let's get the music.